Hey there, and welcome to another deep dive. Buckle up, because we're going to be taking a trip back to ancient Greece, talking about a philosopher named Anaximenes.
Fascinating figure.
Yeah, he was pondering some pretty profound questions about 2,500 years ago.
It's really amazing to think about, isn't it? I mean, these early thinkers were really laying the groundwork for how we understand the universe today.
It's true. And get this, and Anaximenes had this radical idea that everything, and I mean everything, could be boiled down to one essential element: air.
It was a pretty bold claim.
Air.
Yeah. You see, most philosophers at the time, they were debating which of the classical elements, earth, water, fire, which of those held the key to understanding the universe. But Anaximenes, he saw something special in air.
Okay, so air. It's invisible. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
How did he explain how something so, well, for lack of a better word, airy could turn into like a rock
Hmm.
or a tree
Hmm.
or, a person?
Right, and that's where his ideas get really, really interesting. Anaximenes believed that air could transform into other substances through two key processes, rarefaction and condensation.
So kind of like how water can turn into ice or steam.
Exactly. Imagine air as thin and free as you can picture it. Then picture it being squeezed, becoming denser and denser. That's condensation. And he believed this is how air becomes wind, then clouds, water, earth, and eventually even solid stone.
Well, so he basically thought that everything was just air at different levels of, like, squishedness.
Essentially, yeah. And then on the flip side, there's rarefaction, where air becomes thinner, less dense. And Anaximenes believed this is how air turned into fire.
Okay.
Think about the feeling of holding your hand near a candle flame, that warmth, that less dense air that was fire to him.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So if condensation makes things, like, denser and colder, then rarefaction makes them lighter and hotter.
Precisely. And these weren't just random ideas he, pulled out of thin air, so to speak. He used everyday observations to support his theory.
Okay, like what?
Well, he often used the example of breath.
Breath.
Have you ever noticed how your breath feels warm when your mouth is wide open, but if you purse your lips and blow, it's cool?
Yeah? Actually, now that you mention it.
Right.
Yeah.
He noticed that too. He realized that when air is compressed, denser, it feels cooler. Now, we understand temperature and density a bit differently today, but it's remarkable how he was able to draw these connections just from observing the world around him.
It's like he was piecing together a giant puzzle, trying to figure out how all the pieces fit together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And a key part of that puzzle for Anaximenes was this idea that the transformations air goes through aren't about changing what it is, but how much of it there is in a given space. In other words, he saw these transformations as changes in quantity, not quality.
Mm.
He didn't think that air magically morphed into water, but that by compressing air, you could, in a sense, create water.
That's a pretty revolutionary concept for his time. It's like he was thinking about atoms and molecules centuries before those ideas even existed.
Absolutely. He was grappling with the fundamental nature of matter, asking questions that are still relevant to physics today.
So we've got air condensing into rocks, rarefying into fire. What else did Anaximenes apply this air theory to? Did he stop there?
Oh, not at all. Anaximenes believed that air wasn't just the basis of rocks and fire, it was essential to life itself. In fact, he believed the soul, the very essence of a living being, was made of air.
Wait, so he thought we were all just like talking balloons of air.
In a way, yeah. He saw the soul as a form of air in motion, a force that drives our actions and behaviors, much like the wind.
Wow, okay, so air is in everything. It's what makes us alive. This guy was really committed to this whole air idea.
He was. And it didn't stop there. He even applied it to the entire universe. But we'll get into that after a quick break.
It's interesting to consider how radical Anaximenes' ideas must have seemed at the time,
Yeah.
He wasn't just like proposing a new scientific theory. He was presenting a completely new way of looking at the universe.
Yeah, it's true. This wasn't just some abstract philosophical debate. He was talking about the very essence of reality, the stuff that makes up you, me, and everything around us. So how did people react to his ideas? I mean, were they convinced? Well, it's important to remember that Anaximenes wasn't, working in isolation. He was part of a vibrant intellectual community in ancient Greece, a group of thinkers we now call the Milesian school of philosophy.
Oh, right. And these were the real intellectual heavyweights of the day, right? Didn't this group include guys like Thales, the water is the fundamental element guy?
That's right. Thales was a key figure in the Milesian school, and he did believe that water was the fundamental element. And then there was Anaximander, another Milesian philosopher who had this concept of the aberon, kind of a boundless, undefined, primordial substance from which everything else emerged.
Okay, so Anaximenes was part of this, like, lineage of thinkers who were all trying to find that one thing, that one element that could explain, like, the whole universe.
Exactly. They were all searching for a unifying principle, a way to make sense of the vast diversity of the cosmos. They debated, they challenged each other's ideas, and in doing so, they pushed the boundaries of human understanding.
It's like they were having a giant philosophical brainstorming session, bouncing ideas off each other, trying to, like, crack the code of the universe.
In a way, yeah. And what I find fascinating is how Anaximenes seems to kind of bridge the gap between Thales and Anaximander. He agreed with Thales that there was a single fundamental element, but he also seemed to like Anaximander's idea that this element should be something boundless, something with the potential for, infinite transformation.
Right. And that's where air comes in. It's everywhere. It's constantly changing. It's essential for life. It's almost like he found the perfect candidate to fit both of those requirements.
That's a really interesting observation. Air does seem to strike a balance between the concrete and the abstract. It's something we can feel, we can experience it directly, but it's also incredibly dynamic and ever-changing.
Okay, so he's got this all-encompassing theory of air, but he
Mhm.
still needs to explain how the universe works, right?
Right.
What did Anaximenes believe about the Earth, the sun, the stars? I mean, we know they're not all flat disks floating in the sky.
You're right. While his ideas about the fundamental building blocks of matter were groundbreaking, his cosmology, his understanding of the structure of the universe was a bit different from our modern view.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me the rundown. What did Anaximenes think the universe looked like?
Anaximenes pictured the Earth as a flat disk, kind of like a plate, floating on a bed of air.
Okay, a flat Earth, yeah. Heard that one before. What are the sun and stars?
He imagined those as flat disks, too, also floating in the air above us.
So the whole universe was just a bunch of cosmic frisbees, like, whizzing around.
Well, not exactly whizzing. He still believed that the Earth was the center of the universe and that the sun revolved around us.
Okay. So how did he explain things like, day and night or the changing seasons if the sun was just this flat disk circling overhead?
He believed that the sun's movements, though orbiting the Earth, caused it to pass behind taller portions of the Earth, creating night.
Huh. I've got to admit, even though we know it isn't accurate, it's kind of a fascinating way to picture the universe. You
Yeah.
can almost see how someone might come to that conclusion just by observing, like, the way things appear to move across the sky.
Right, and that's a key point. While his cosmology wasn't entirely accurate, it highlights how much Anaximenes valued observation and logical reasoning. He was trying to develop a system that could explain the world around him based on what he could observe with his own eyes.
Yeah, it makes you realize how much our understanding of the universe has evolved over the centuries thanks to, scientific tools and discoveries. But even if he didn't get all the details right, Anaximenes was asking the right questions.
Exactly. He was a pioneer of natural philosophy, seeking explanations for the universe based on natural phenomena rather than, supernatural intervention. He paved the way for future generations of thinkers to refine, challenge, and ultimately revolutionize our understanding of the cosmos.
It's really amazing to think that these big questions about the universe, about the nature of reality, were being pondered thousands of years ago by philosophers like Anaximenes.
It is truly humbling. And while we may chuckle at the notion of a flat Earth or a sun that's a glowing disk, we have to remember that Anaximenes was working with the limited knowledge available at the time. What's important is his spirit of inquiry, his desire to understand the universe through observation and reason.
So the next time we take a deep breath of that life-giving air, maybe we can spare a thought for Anaximenes and his bold attempt to explain the universe with one simple, elegant element.
Absolutely. It reminds us that sometimes the most profound insights can come from the simplest observations if we're willing to look closely enough and ask the right questions.
This deep dive may be over, but the journey of discovery never truly ends. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and who knows what wonders you might uncover.